Ladies and gentlemen, Nathan and I's flag plants for 2025. These are the players. The flag has been planted. These are the guys we're all in on. If they end up sucking, it's of course because we're stupid, but we are going for it with these players. We are betting it all on these players. My first player here, Chargers running back.
Are you kidding me?
Hampton is my first flag plant.
Okay.
I love
Let the
Omarion
record show
Hampton.
that he stole this player from me. I wrote him
Nathan,
down first.
I took him in the flock league.
I took him in my first fantasy draft of the season at the 2-3 turn.
I flag planted in front of now 300,000 people, and so this is my flag plant. Omarion Hampton on the Chargers.
He stole it from me.
He is going to absolutely kill it in his rookie year, I think. And I think it's going to start well. We do have news now that Najee Harris is probably going to be ready to start the year. I don't think this matters personally. We've seen what Najee does and what he's capable of. Obviously, Najee ran for 1,000 yards or more every year of his career while he was in Pittsburgh, and it kind of flew under the radar because from a fantasy football perspective, he hasn't been great. But when you're looking at the type of prospect that Omarion Hampton is, and you're looking at the hit rates of those guys, how they typically perform in their rookie year, what kind of offense they're going into, he has a favorable offensive situation, and his, again, level of prospect, those guys typically perform their rookie year at a very high level. And so where you're getting Omarion Hampton right now is the third round of your fantasy football drafts. Obviously, I took him at the 2-3 turn because he wasn't coming back to me. If I wanted him, and I did because he's a my guy, because he's a flag plant, I had to take him there. So I did. I think Omarion Hampton this year is due for a running back one season in his rookie year. I think he's going to be a top 12 running back, maybe even top 10 running back this year for the Chargers. I think he's going to be the guy that gets the red zone work there. I think he's the guy that has receiving skill set. I think he's the guy that has big playability there. And he's going to be on an offense. Again, the Chargers offense is a projected top 10 offense in the NFL, according to Vegas betting lines early in the season. So Omarion Hampton, obviously, he's become more popular as the offseason has gone on, but he's been somebody that we have been in on in Dynasty since January. We've followed this guy. We've covered this guy. And he is set up to absolutely crush it this year. I think Omarion Hampton's going to be somebody who is contributing to you winning your fantasy football league because you got him in the second, third round. And I think he will be performing at the level of a running back that should have been drafted in the first round. That Charger situation is perfect for him. He has an amazing skill set. He's workhorse ready, bell cow size, receiving skill set. There's not a ton of weaknesses to this guy. Omarion Hampton is my first flag plant.
David Montgomery is going to be my first flag plant going to another running back here. And you'd be like, oh, why would you plant your flag on a running back too? It's all about the price. And honestly, it's all about the safety with David Montgomery. And I do think that he is going to be one of the safest options when it's all said and done here at his respective price. More often than not, you really are going to be getting David Montgomery in the mid-6 rounds. Sometimes he falls to the late 6. We've seen that less and less as we get closer to the season. The more I look at David Montgomery's situation and what he was able to do while Jahmyr Gibbs was on the field last season, and how Dan Campbell, before Ben Johnson was calling plays for the Detroit Lions, how Dan Campbell operated that offense and wanted it to be operated in the backfield, he likes his running back splits in terms of the carries that they get on a per-game basis. And I wouldn't be so shocked if David Montgomery just continues to do what he's been doing the last couple of years in an offense without Ben Johnson calling plays. He is their big body running back that is going to get the short line, goal line, or short yardage and goal line situational carries and opportunities. The reason Montgomery over the last couple of years has been so productive is because of the touchdowns that he's been getting. And again, we a lot of times account for the volatility of touchdown consistency for players that over the course of their entire career have not been consistent with getting touchdowns. And you're like, okay, maybe we're going to regress back a little bit to what we saw previously. With Montgomery, it's been really consistent since he's been in Detroit the last 2 years, 13 and 12 touchdowns on the ground, respectively. He's been getting roughly the same amount of carries on a per game basis as well, finishing as a mid running back too. The reason I like David Montgomery so much is when you're calling shots on players in the first 4 rounds of your draft. If you're taking a Nico Collins, if you're taking a Devon Achane, if you're taking a young guy like a Marvin Harrison Jr., or you want to take a shot on a Tet McMillan in the 4th round, some of those guys might not hit. Some of those guys might not hit to the level that you expect them at the current price that they're going. Maybe they just end up being a disappointment. David Montgomery's a pick in the mid-rounds of your fantasy draft that will not lose you a league barring injury. He just won't. He's going to continue to get this opportunity, and I think people are willing enough to just look at what his skill set is in that offense to know that, hey, even though there's no Ben Johnson there, maybe the plays will get less flashy, less cute, less sexy, maybe less efficient as a whole. Maybe the offense will get less efficient as a whole. The volume's going to stay about the same.
All right, my next guy here, another guy I took in the Flock League, and of course I'm planting my flag on him. That's why I took him, is Devonta Smith. I think Devonta Smith, when you're looking at his first 4 years in the NFL, he's never averaged under 10 points per game. In fact, in the last 3 years, he's averaged 15, 14.2, and 15.3 fantasy points per game. He's the definition of consistency when you're looking at his receiving touchdowns, 7, 7, and 8 receiving touchdowns. And actually, he had more receiving touchdowns last year in 3 less games than he had in 2023 and 2022. Which is pretty common when you're looking at the Eagles' offense as a whole. Obviously, in terms of passing volume, not super high, but in terms of passing touchdowns, top 10, right? And so this is because the Eagles' offense is a well-oiled machine. It's also a machine that I think is going to pass the ball more this year. When you're looking at Devonta Smith and his overall opportunity by year, last year he was only 56th in routes run in the entire NFL, but he was 7th in target share. Not a lot of total targets, but very concentrated when there are targets. 2023, he was 10th in the league in routes run. And so 583, that's 36 per game. And then in 2022, again, 17th in routes run. And so last year, when you're looking at his opportunity versus years prior, does seem like kind of an outlier compared to, again, what you normally see with Devonta Smith, which tells me this. If they throw the ball at all, I promise you they are not throwing the ball less this year. I would put $1,000 on them throwing the ball more this year. And because that target share is so concentrated in Philadelphia, I think Devonta Smith, when you're talking about betting on Devonta Smith, you're talking about betting on a good quarterback in Jalen Hurts. You're talking about betting on a good offense in the Eagles offense. And you're talking about betting on maybe the most talented wide receiver 2 in the NFL. Devonta Smith, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, guys like that, right? Devonta Adams are pretty cool, whichever one's the 2. I mean, Devonta Adams. And so, I don't think when you're looking across the board at what you're betting on with Devonta Smith, I do not think it's a bad bet. It's an extremely high floor bet, which is why I like Devonta Smith. I know what I'm getting here. I'm getting at least 14 points per game this year in my flex spot if I'm drafting Devonta Smith in the 5th round. But I also know that the ceiling for Devonta Smith, I think, is one that we haven't necessarily seen yet. Because what if the Eagles, who, again, were very efficient in terms of passing touchdowns compared to the amount of times they passed, what if they do pass more and they keep the same efficiency? Then Devonta Smith could potentially be in for a year where he has a very high amount of touchdowns, which would balloon his points per game up to maybe 16. Maybe 16 and a half. And at that point, you're talking about him being a league-winning flex spot. And I do think he has that upside. And again, if A.J. Brown were to, at any point in the season, miss time, Devonta Smith would immediately become the one in Philadelphia, and he would average probably 18 points per game in that role. He would. And so there's always that possibility as well. He's an extremely safe wide receiver 2 on one of the best offenses in the NFL, and he's primed to get more opportunity this year. And so I'm putting my chips in on Devonta Smith. I think he's a great pick if you're getting him in the 5th round of most fantasy drafts, which you are getting him in the 5th or 6th round. You take him, you bet on the offense, you bet on the talent, and you bet on the situation.
I got a lot of criticism in the Flock League for multiple reasons, but one of the biggest reasons outside of the obvious one in the Judkins pick was selecting Garrett Wilson in the middle of the 4th round. Can someone explain to me in the comments why Garrett Wilson in the middle of the 4th round, a top 12 wide receiver last year in Garrett Wilson in the middle of the 4th round, 150 plus target on a per year basis with Tim Boyle throwing him the ball in the middle of the 4th round? How is that a bad pick? Legit, like how is that a bad pick? How is that not one of the highest floor picks when it comes to consistent opportunity on a per game basis? Explain to me. Seriously, explain to me. Look at his route running: 94th percentile against man, 82nd against zone, 86th against press coverage. I don't even know why I have to go over this for the 10th time. I feel like this offseason. How did I end up being the Garrett Wilson guy? This was supposed to be a Bush thing. Bush was supposed to take him in the 1st round again this year. Garrett Wilson last year in the 1st round as a 1st round pick with Aaron Rodgers was a bad pick because the projection that we had for that offense was much higher than what it ended up being. Garrett Wilson still finished with Devonta Adams in that same offense as a wide receiver 1 in fantasy football. There is no more Devonta Adams. There is no more Aaron Rodgers, who ironically, from an efficiency perspective as a passer last year, was not that far off from Justin Fields in 2023. Which I cannot believe that I'm just looking at the efficiency metrics here. If in a vacuum, obviously I prefer Aaron Rodgers as a fantasy supporting quarterback to throw the ball to Garrett Wilson, sure. But the fact that the competition has been essentially wiped off the face of the earth in that offense, and Justin Fields, his weakness is that he's a first read only quarterback. That's Garrett Wilson's strength, because Garrett Wilson is the first read every single time that he's going to drop back. And he's the one that's winning the routes 94% of the time. Those of you who don't like Garrett Wilson in the middle of the fourth round, I will continue to take him. I have a couple of shares of him, obviously, in a number of my fantasy leagues this year. Again, is he going to finish as a top 6 wide receiver this year? I definitely would not put my money on that. But at a fourth round price tag, going around Devontae Adams, who is a wide receiver 2 in his respective offense, going around Cortland Sutton and Terry McLaurin, who are wide receiver 1s in their offense, but really their range of outcomes this year are very volatile and very wide because their target volume is not as consistent as Garrett Wilson's. DK Metcalf sometimes going in the fourth round as well. Like, it's not like any of these situations are better. So at the end of the day, guys, please just if you don't want to take Garrett Wilson in the fourth, don't take Garrett Wilson in the fourth. But don't say that it's like the worst pick in the entire draft. Like, I just don't understand that at this point in time. He's a fraction of he's a fraction of the price that he was going at last year, and he's not in any worse of a situation than he has been for his entire career, and he's produced regardless.
My next guy is, of course, I don't know how to say his name because I don't want to get canceled. It's not your place to cancel people for saying people's names wrong, so don't correct me. But I'll say T-Mac, but his name is Tedaroa McMillan. People have said Ted. It's not Ted. It doesn't matter what his name is. He's the wide receiver 1 in Carolina. And he's definitely the wide receiver 1 after the Carolina Panthers.
You are so disrespectful, dude.
What did I say?
You said it doesn't matter what his name is.
It does. His name
matters.
His name is McMillan. Mr. McMillan, that's what I'm going to call him. And he's definitely the wide receiver 1 in Carolina after they traded away Adam Thielen this morning. And you would think, why is Adam Thielen actually making a difference there? Well, he actually was. Adam Thielen was productive at points last year with Bryce Young. Traded him back to the Vikings. And so people are like, oh, it's Cokehead season. I'm a Cokehead, whatever. No, it's T-Mac season. It's T-Mac season. Cokehead's a wide receiver 2 on an offense that projects to be a bottom 10 offense in the NFL probably. Bottom 15, I would say safely. Because I think it will be a little bit better than I think people think. And that's part of what plays into my argument with, I can't even say it. This is what plays in my argument with him. Because with him, I think that he is a great prospect. He got elite draft capital. And I think he's going to an offense where when you're looking at the guys last year, like Adam Thielen, like Jalen Coker, they were able to produce in that offense, especially at the end of the year when Bryce Young was playing some of his best football of his career. In fact, it was the best football of Bryce Young's career. And so you look at that and you feel a little bit better. You know, Dave Canales is there, and he's done very well with quarterbacks. You saw him kind of revitalize Geno Smith's career in Seattle, and then you saw him go to Tampa Bay and work with Baker Mayfield. And so we talked about the Dave Canales effect on quarterbacks, and you started to see that kind of trickle into Bryce Young's play last year, I think. And so that's why I'm encouraged. I actually think the offensive situation there is going to be a little bit better than people think. And with Mr. McMillan here,
it'll be fine.
With Mr. McMillan here, I think he was drafted to be the wide receiver 1 there. And I think he's going to get every relevant target. Think about it. They don't have a dominant tight end. Their wide receiver 2 is Jalen Coker, which I like Jalen Coker, but I don't think he's going to be like crazy from a fantasy perspective this year. I think he's going to get a 26% target share. I think he will have a 26% target share, and I think that is going to lead to immediate year 1 production for Mr. McMillan here. Look, and you're looking at his receiving profile on reception perception coming out of college, 80th percentile against press coverage, which you do like to see. He also 60th percentile against both man and zone coverage. So not like elite prospect level stuff, but good enough to where when he's in the right situation, and I do think this is probably one of the better situations for T-Mac or Mr. McMillan or him, because there's nobody else there. So he gets all the opportunity he wants at the beginning, but it's not the worst offensive. He's not going to the Saints, right? And so I'm planting my flag on Mr. whatever his name is. You can correct me in the comments if you want. I don't care what you call him. I have drafted him a lot this year. I have him on my Dynasty teams a lot this year, and I will continue to take him until the season starts because I think he's straight up going to be a stud in the NFL. Give me some more T-Mac this year.
My flag plant is going to be Alvin Kamara. I had to go out of my way to stop selecting Alvin Kamara in my fantasy drafts so that I wasn't overexposed to him and had him on literally every single team. Alvin Kamara is one of the best picks that you can take in the middle to late third round, sometimes even early fourth if he falls there. The dude averaged 19 points per game last year. 19 points per game. Let me say that one more time. Alvin Kamara averaged 19 points per game last year. Derrick Henry, who is a borderline first-round pick, a 1-2 turn guy, averaged 18.5 points per game last year. And yeah, I totally understand the situation. Again, there's always a reason for why some of these guys are falling. Alvin Kamara got banged up and injured at the end of last season. Derrick Henry, over the course of his entire career, has shown to be a little bit durable. I mean, he's 31 going on 32 years old and still as a top running back in the NFL. And he's in a better offensive situation, hands down. No problem. Like that's not a question here. Again, where are you drafting this guy? That's what I care about. Where are you drafting Alvin Kamara with 19 point per game upside the third freaking round? Breece Hall hasn't sniffed that production ever. And he's going right around where Alvin Kamara is in an offense where there's a rushing QB that might take away from him potentially. You've got other guys like that, Chuba Hubbard going in that same range. You've got unproven guys like Travion Henderson now being drafted over Alvin Kamara, ahead of Alvin Kamara right now. You've got guys like James Cook, who again on a per game basis, on a points per game basis, has not matched what Alvin Kamara has been able to do. I mean, 2 points per game less, actually 3 points per game less than what Alvin Kamara did last season, and James Cook is going right at or ahead of Alvin Kamara at the moment. Again, you can scream situation to me. Alvin Kamara has been in a poopy situation for the last 4 years in New Orleans, and his production has not stopped, and he's actually gotten better over the last couple of years. He's gotten better. He's gotten more efficient on a per carry basis. I mean, you're looking at when you go all the way back to 2021, that's when you're starting to worry about potential regression. 3.7 yards per carry, 4 yards per carry, 3.8 yards per carry. When's he ever going to get higher than that? He actually goes up, and his receiving usage just continues to be so consistent his entire career. I mean, he's going to have 500 receiving yards again this season with 80 to 90 targets. Book it. It's going to happen. You see this, honestly, in a lot of bad offenses in the NFL. See Chuba Hubbard, for example, where Bryce Young really struggled. Some of these bad offenses actually love getting their running backs involved consistently, and clearly Alvin Kamara has been the staple of that example since Drew Brees retired. And I don't understand why that would stop. Someone tell me in the comments why that would stop. Take Alvin Kamara in the third round.
My number 4 flag plant for this year is Rome Odunze, wide receiver of the Chicago Bears, and a lot of people have written him off. And most people have, honestly, because he's going in the 5th, 6th round of fantasy football drafts, when in reality, I think we're going to look back and be like, yeah, he could have easily gone in the 3rd. Because when you're looking at the situation there, DJ Moore is the guy where, you had people who watched football last year, stopped watching football, and they're just now getting into football, and they're like, oh yeah, DJ Moore, he was the guy there last year, he's going to be the guy there again. But they don't understand. And you may not understand until I'm telling you the level of prospect that Rome Odunze was. Keep in mind, they selected Rome Odunze in the top 10 of the NFL draft. Why do you think they did that? Do you think they did that for Rome Odunze to take a backseat to DJ Moore for the first 3 years of his career? Because I don't think they did. And yeah, you may point to last year and say, well, Rome wasn't productive last year. Well, I get that. But Rome also was in a situation just like Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams wasn't productive. And it wasn't because Caleb Williams sucks and Rome sucked, or was it because they were just in a bad situation last year? It was just because they were in a bad situation. And you're going to see that this year. And what I've seen from the preseason from the Bears, Caleb looks a lot more decisive than he was last year. He looks like he knows where he's going with the football. And Rome Odunze looks like he is showing flashes of the talent we saw at Washington. At Washington, he was one of the best wide receivers in the country in college football with Michael Penix. One of the best wide receivers in the country. And people have pretty much just put that aside because they think that DJ Moore is this unstoppable, immovable force. And the fact of the matter is, while DJ Moore was very good last year, I don't think there's anything that in DJ Moore's profile that screams, oh my gosh, Rome Odunze can't overcome this. Because when you're looking at DJ Moore last year, he was 4th in routes run. He was 10th in the league in targets. He was 3rd in YAC. He was 9th in receptions. But in terms of efficiency, 66th in yards per route run. And so when you're looking at DJ Moore, I mean, DJ Moore also is 28 and a half years old. And I think DJ Moore is in the prime of his career. So I'm not saying that DJ Moore can't be productive there this year. I'm saying that both of them can be productive. That's my main point here. I think this Ben Johnson offense, it's almost like, bear with me for a second. It's almost like we've seen a Ben Johnson offense produce 2 fantasy relevant, fantasy productive wide receivers. Can you think of an example of that?
Plus a couple running backs.
And how about a tight end too?
Maybe a tight end.
Okay, yeah. So they kind of get my point there, right? It's not just it's DJ Moore or nothing here. No. And I think in terms of red zone upside, I think actually Rome Odunze has more red zone upside.
He's been the guy in training camp that's been getting schemed up in the red zone specifically.
And DJ Moore last year was actually 9th in the league in red zone targets at 21, but Rome Odunze last year was 10th in the league in red zone targets and had 18. And the problem was
That's
with
a
Rome
fun
Odunze,
fact right there.
he only had 3 touchdowns last year. Yeah. He's going to have more this year. Mark it down. He's going to have more this year. And I think Rome Odunze at price is going to be somebody that you can start in your second wide receiver spot, and you're getting him at flex spot prices. I think this Chicago offense, look, Ben Johnson, schematically, I don't know if you've ever watched it. I'm not like a super duper X and O football nerd. I love fantasy football. I love analytics, and I love watching football. But I can't say I'm out here breaking down coverages and stuff like that. And you probably aren't either. But if you've ever watched somebody break down one of Ben Johnson's schemes, it's mind-numbing. He is a football genius. I'm not going to bet against that. And I also know that Ben Johnson, part of the reason he took the job in Chicago is because of Caleb Williams, because of Rome Odunze, because of DJ Moore, and then obviously added Colson Lovett and Luther Burden. It's going to be one of the better offenses in the NFL this year. Rome Odunze is going to be, in my opinion, the primary beneficiary of that. And again, DJ Moore can still be productive with Rome Odunze being productive. But Rome is going to be productive. Mark my words. This guy is way too talented of a football player not to break out in his second year. And so you will see the breakout happen.
Way back when a lot of you were still in your slumber before fantasy football was really picking up in terms of content and all that stuff back in probably, I don't know what it freaking was, maybe June. Mm-hmm. I told you guys that Daniel Jones was going to be the starting quarterback for the Colts to start the season, and it happened. And that could not be more of a positive for really, honestly, everyone in that offense. I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is how bad the situation is in Indianapolis at the quarterback position. This specifically for Tyler Warren is so good. This is really what you wanted to see. Daniel Jones has his shortcomings, to put it nicely. He will follow an assignment, and he will get it done. He will do what Shane Steichen tells him to do, and he will actually be able to throw the ball so slightly a little more accurately, consistently than Anthony Richardson can. And again, Daniel Jones is not the poster child for a accurate thrower of the football. There's a reason that he really is probably for the rest of his career going to be a perennial backup. But from a consistency perspective on a per-game basis, this is a step up from Anthony Richardson. If anyone who watched Anthony Richardson last season, not just like as a player and a runner and everything as a quarterback, but like as a passer specifically, it was hit or miss at best, like quarter by quarter. You could never rely on this guy. I mean, he would just throw an absolute dot one throw, and then the next 5 were over the heads of every single receiver and into the lap of a safety 50 yards past the guy that he was actually trying to target. Tyler Warren is the debatably easiest target in that offense, maybe the second easiest. Michael Pittman, you can make an argument for that. He's the guy that's been consistently the number 1 option as a receiver there. Tyler Warren is the do-it-all receiving option for the Indianapolis Colts. They took a shot on him for a reason with a top 15 pick, and you saw a little glimpse of what his usage is going to be looking like in the preseason, and honestly was very resemblant of how Brock Bowers was utilized last season in preseason with the Vegas Raiders, where he was literally just lining up everywhere. Slot, traditional tight end, outside, backfield, you name it, everything. The type of routes that he was running across the middle of the field, he was running go routes down the field. He was getting sideline, back shoulder catches, by the way. This guy will be everywhere on the field, and he will be getting a ridiculous amount of targets because Shane Steichen has his shortcomings as a head coach, but what he can do is scheme up his favorite players very well. We know this all too well with Josh Downs specifically. Josh Downs is a pretty popular receiver in Indianapolis, and he obviously was very productive last season in really significant stints with Joe Flacco at quarterback, right? We showed any semblance of competent quarterback play. Joe Flacco was awful last year, but at least he could accurately throw a football. And when that happens, your best players in Indianapolis' offense are going to be productive. And I think Tyler Warren's going to take over this year as Josh Downs starts the season slow because he was banged up, had a significant ankle injury, and Michael Pittman kind of took a step back last season with the back injury. I think Warren's going to be your guy this year. And I put my money where my mouth's at in the Flock League with that pick.
All right, I'm going with the tight end here as well. And it's not the tight end I took in the Flock League and Sam Laporta. This is Evan Ingram. I think Evan Ingram is going to be used so intentionally in that offense, it's not even funny. And I think the debate between Mims and Pat Bryant and whoever else is going to be the wide receiver 2 there, I think it's all a bunch of hippy-dippy baloney because in the end, it's Evan Ingram. because they've got Courtland Sutton, and he can work, the outside. He can be a hybrid wide receiver, whatever. But who's the slot wide receiver there? The slot wide receiver is Evan Ingram. We've already talked about this, and I know I'm beating a dead horse, but in case you haven't heard me talk about this, Evan Ingram in his best years, because really kind of revitalized his career when he went to Jacksonville and became one of Trevor Lawrence's favorite targets. Now, why was he Trevor Lawrence's favorite target? And that's really what you have to look at in his metrics here. Because when you're looking at his slot snaps in 2023, when he was first in targets in the entire NFL, first in routes run, fourth in fantasy points per game among tight ends, and he was first in slot snaps, 414. And again, you've heard this as well. In 2022, he actually ran 100 less slot snaps than he did in 2023, and he still was first in slot snaps, and he was still fifth in routes run and fifth in targets, and still on a points per game basis was seventh in the entire NFL. And look, right now you're getting Evan Ingram in the eighth, ninth round. I think he's going to be as productive as a Tyler Warren. I think he's going to be as productive as Sam Laporta. I think he's going to be up there in that next tier of guys behind Bowers and McBride this year. And so, in my opinion, you can completely punt tight end. You can go get Evan Ingram in the ninth, and you can get the production level that you would get by drafting a tight end in the fifth round. That's what I think you're going to be able to do. And again, this is one of the better situations for him to be in. Sean Payton loves his tight ends that can work like this. He loves the type of player that Evan Ingram is. Not your typical tight end, not your TJ Hawkinson type of tight end. He's not even a Bowers type of tight end. He really is kind of his own thing. And Sean Payton loves those type of players. And if we know anything about Sean Payton offenses, they're going to heavily feature guys where he really likes their skill set. Evan Ingram, I think, is no exception to that. And I think he's going to be fantastic this year. And I think we're going to look back and be like, yeah, we probably should have drafted more of Evan Ingram. He's my guy this year, flag plant. So again, these are our flag plants for 2025. Omarion Hampton, my number one love, my guy, the guy that I planted my flag on. We love sharing these with you guys. And so make sure you drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Make sure you subscribed if you enjoyed this video as well. And if you play fantasy football, he's mad at me because I took Hampton, but he's my guy. He's mine. Again, you could have taken him in the flock league. You took Judkins. You can have Judkins.
You're not the only one that owns Omarion Hampton in fantasy football.
You can have Judkins.
I'm the one that took the first shot on Omarion Hampton to start our whole run with all these real money live leagues that we've been doing on DFF. So I took him first. I love Hampton more than he does.
No, he doesn't.
So,
and the other thing,
I do.
The other thing is...
they gifted him the 101.
I think I have a better track record of drafting rookie running backs than you do, buddy. I think I do. All right. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching it.
He's mine.